Good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today's FactRight webinar on the importance of operational controls. My name is Sherry Graham and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of FactRight. In a minute, I'll introduce you to Kate Stephanie, who will be hosting the webinar. But first, a couple of housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded, so you'll be able to listen to it at a later time and share it with your colleagues. I expect Kate's presentation to last about 20 minutes. You'll also notice that you have a dashboard. You can submit questions using the dashboard or after the presentation directly to myself or Kate. Please also note that there's a PDF presentation copy available for you to download through the dashboard. We will also be seeking your feedback at the end of the presentation. So please, before you exit, there will be a small pop-up window that will have a short evaluation that I would really appreciate your completing. Today's presentation is presented by Kate Stephanie. She's the securities attorney with FactRight. Kate is a licensed attorney and graduate of William Mitchell College of Law. Kate has been with FactRight for about 4 years, and she focuses on legal and regulatory issues with respect to sponsors and offerings. Kate also oversees the corporate structure and analysis of sponsors, issuers, and their offerings. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Kate.
Thank you, Sherry. So it's only after completing your due diligence on a sponsor's investment program, the underwriting and modeling, going on site, and meeting management that your relationship truly begins, your business relationship. And operational controls are a key part of that. Today, we'll go over what are operational controls, why you should review them, where risks can occur, and some best practices. So FactRight knows that how a sponsor operates its business is just as important as its business model. That's why our operational due diligence, or sponsor reports, have always included a review of operational controls. Operational controls are incorporated throughout an organization. Based on our professional experiences and priorities stated by the regulatory bodies, we focus our operational reviews on the following business areas: information technology, financial and accounting, human resources and capital, and significant vendors. We also focus the scope of our review on employee procedures regarding proprietary information, accountability and access to financial assets, network and system protection, and data storage and recovery. So what are operational controls? They're authority over normal business operations, the everyday nuts and bolts that keep an organization going. These do not include control over strategic business tactics, targets, or high-level business priorities. So why should you review operational controls? Broker-dealers are subject to specific FINRA rules regarding the oversight, storage, and safeguarding of electronically stored records, such as consumer financial information. And over the last few years, both FINRA and the SEC have mentioned operational controls in their examination priority letters, specifically IT cybersecurity and financial and accounting controls. But why should you care about a sponsor's operational controls? So these are controls that are in place so an organization can maintain its operations through observation and preventative measures. And these have the most effect on your business relationship. Understanding these help you truly understand an organization. Because if you're comfortable that good operational controls are in place, then your relationship with the sponsor should run smoothly and predictably, and you should have some comfort in the organization being able to identify and mitigate issues as they arise. So where could some operational control risks occur? Now there are some obvious ones that usually are headline risk: getting hacked, which is a failure to protect data or information. Embezzlement always makes the news, which is when fraudulent transactions could occur. But there are some less obvious areas that could have issues that could lead to bigger risks, such as an organization could have a culture that does not emphasize doing the right thing, or people or vendors performing key business functions may not be qualified, or properly trained, or properly supervised. Or an organization may not have a plan to mitigate business interruptions due to an event that's outside their control, such as flood, fire, or storm. But you're thinking, I'm not an expert in financial, HR, IT, or vendor management and the controls around them. So what do I do? Well, first thing is ask some questions. Get a feel for the organization. Get a feel for its culture. Does it promote integrity? Does the culture promote ethical values, competence, accountability, and oversight? How is the culture instilled into employees? Is it through training? Is it reinforced through anything, such as a bonus structure or corporate events that promote and show the culture, such as charity days, or if employees are allowed time off to volunteer, or things like that? Learn how the different departments are organized. How many employees are in the departments for accounting, IT, HR? Who reports to who? What are their credentials? How long have the employees been there? Have there been high levels of turnover, or has people been there for a while? How has the department segregated its duties? How does the department train its employees? Are there any internal policies or procedures? When was the last time they were reviewed? And when was the last time they were updated? Find out how an organization finds new employees. Where did they advertise for positions, especially positions that may be in specialized areas such as accounting? Are background checks run on potential employees? What do those checks cover? Are they the same for everyone, or are there some differences depending on the job responsibilities or area? How does the organization determine access for different programs or servers? Not just access for new employees, but for current employees that may have job responsibilities that are changing. What are the procedures for identifying and testing network security? What are the procedures for testing any lapses in the definitions of access, or identifying and preventing unauthorized access? Going along in that same vein, who has access to various areas where data is allowed, such as an on-site server room or a personnel file cabinet? Now, sometimes a key area or duty could be outsourced. This is most common, we've found in our reviews, for IT or HR functions, depending on the size of the company or the economics of the relationship. If something is outsourced, find out what company or contractor is doing those responsibilities and what the scope of their responsibilities are. Ask questions around the relationship. How long has that been in place? How did the organization come to know of that company or contractor? Did the contractor used to work for that company and now is a contractor outside, and why? What are their qualifications? And do the qualifications seem appropriate and seem to match the responsibilities expected of them? Could that vendor or contractor be easily replaced if necessary? Are there any backups? Are there any internal redundancies that could help mitigate that? Is the vendor or contractor monitored by the organization's internal personnel? Who's in charge of that relationship? How do they manage that relationship? How do they determine if the vendor is meeting their responsibilities? Has the organization ever replaced a vendor or a contractor? What was the process? How did they decide if the vendor or contractor was not a good fit? What did they go through to find a new vendor or contractor? What lessons did they learn from that situation? Does the organization have some sort of disaster recovery plan? Is there a communication plan within the company to alert employees if they should not come to the office? Are there various backups for the servers and the files? How are they backed up? Tape? Cloud? How often are they backed up? Is it checked to make sure that the backups are working? What can an employee do if they know or believe that wrongdoing or fraud is or may be occurring? Is there a policy or procedure to report potential issues? Is there a culture that would welcome reporting such issues? Is the policy or procedure internal or external? And is it confidential? These are just some questions as a starting point to learn and find out how a company operates its daily operations and what controls it may have in place to monitor those. While you're also asking these questions, you should also look at some documents, because these will really help you get to the answers to some of these. And just some documents that are very helpful in answering these are personnel organizational charts. You can see how the company and the different departments are structured and see who reports to who. Personnel biographies to go and learn about their qualifications, how long they've been with the company, and things like that. See if you can, and try and get agreements between the key vendors and contractors to look at the scope of the responsibilities and see how long they've been in place, and that what people, the organization understands the contractor is doing is actually what's in the contract. Review internal policies and procedures that are significant to the organization that in these areas. For example, copies of internal or external IT control process testing, copies of HR processes, either internally or externally, a copy of the employee handbook to go over and review culture and the different key fundamental aspects of the organization and what it wants its employees to know. See if there is a whistleblower policy. And also look and see if they have a disaster recovery plan. Many are usually informal, but just having one shows that they have thought about it. Now, I want to emphasize that you cannot review operational controls hoping to predict issues. Now, there are times when operational controls do not work as well as it's hoped, and that's usually loud and expensive. Everyone remembers ARCP's failure to correctly report financial information. That resulted in legal investigations and the suspensions of sales for all AR Capital products. Factrite has never conducted due diligence on ARCP, but inferring from the publicly available documents, there were potentially several issues with operational controls. The most obvious was the failure to correctly report financial information. But there may have been some others that could have contributed to that issue. There may not have been an anonymous way for employees to report potential issues. There may not have been a culture that would have encouraged employees to talk about this and or focused on doing the right thing. People also remember Target's failure to protect the personal data of credit card holders. The result of that cost Target hundreds of millions of dollars, and it had to lay off or leave hundreds of positions unfilled. Again, FactRight has not conducted any due diligence on Target, but from the public documents available, you can infer that there were potentially several issues with operational controls. The most obvious was the failure to protect the data. Less obvious issues that could have contributed include a failure to have appropriate testing, either internally or externally, of data security. There could have been a failure to follow or maintain policies or procedures around the data. If a third party was involved in the related procedures, there could have been a failure to properly supervise or properly train the third party or internal people responsible to check that party. It's important to note that these issues go throughout an organization and can be costly. The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners stated in its 2016 Global Fraud Study that the median losses to organizations that were the victim of fraud, but they lacked anti-fraud controls, such as proactive data monitoring, a fraud hotline, and management review, were twice as much as an organization that had been a victim of fraud but had such controls. Which leads to that when operational controls work as expected, which is a majority of the time, it's quiet. In just the last 5 years, we've completed over 100 operational due diligence or sponsor reports, all including this analysis. In most of these reviews, we hear of issues that were identified and solved in the normal course of business before they became larger issues due to solid operational controls. This can only emphasize the value of segregating duties, having backups, and performing third-party checks. So what I've discussed today are just some of the questions and documents to think about and review when you're looking at an organization's operational controls. FactRight knows that how a sponsor operates its business is just as important as its business model. And that's why we have always included a review of operational controls in our operational due diligence reports. Everyone knows people remember when things go wrong, but they don't usually remember when things go right. And things go right every day. If you have any questions on this information, please send an email to myself at kate@factright.com. Over the next couple of weeks, I will prepare a question and answer document from what I receive and post it to the report center for everyone to see. Thank you for joining us today to talk about operational controls.